Hello, everyone. Hey, my name is Claudia Costello. If you don't know me, I am the community lead here at the PR Habitat, and we are here today to talk freelance versus traditional 9 to 5 in comms with Ashley Dennison and Sarah Mattina. I'll let you both go ahead and introduce yourselves. You'll do a way better job than I will. So let's start with Ashley.
Hi, everybody. So glad to be here. My name's Ashley Dennison. I've worked in communications and PR for almost 20 years now. And I was telling Claudia before we started the call, I've had a chance to dabble in all the different facets of this business and how you can be an agency person, you can be an in-house person, and you can be an independent consultant or freelancer, and even more options than that. But I've worn a lot of hats, so I'm looking forward to talking about some of those experiences and helping to guide you if I can, because there's a lot of choices out there. Oh, and by the way, I guess I should say I started a company called commsconsultants.com, which brings together a lot of consultants from around the world who work in our space in comms and marketing and PR, and we're helping companies to find the talent they need when they need it. So that's my business spiel. But Sarah, take it away.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Mattina. So excited to be here with all of you today. I have almost a decade of experience in communications, ranging from internal comms to external comms, agency, corporate, in-house, you name it. And now I am a consultant of my own with my company, Mattina Media Group, which focuses on comms for venture capital firms and venture capital backed startups. So really excited to be here with everybody today.
Yeah. So I guess we kind of dived into both of your journeys, but if you could give us like a 1-minute elevator pitch of how you guys both got into comms, whether it was your major in college or your first job, whatever it might be, I think that would be helpful for the audience.
Do you want me to go first, Claudia?
Yeah, we can go ahead and start with you, Ashley.
Okay. I crossed over to the dark side, as they put it, because I started out in journalism. So you'll find many people, maybe some of you on this call, started with an interest in journalism or a specialization in journalism. Eva's laughing at me, doing a little laughy face. I was going to be a integrity-driven journalist, and instead I crossed over to the PR side when I heard that there were more job opportunities and more potential security in that field. So that's how I started. I crossed over from journalism to PR and then grew from there into other sides of the communications industry, because that's the other piece. Is I'm sure many of you already know this, but there's a whole wide world within the communications and marketing space that's not just PR. So PR was what I knew when I started. And then my eyes were open to the whole range of opportunities under the comms and marketing umbrella.
Yeah, so I actually knew that I wanted to be in communications since I was 16. I, at the time, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And that was kind of the time when I felt like I needed to start figuring it out, or at least figuring it out for college application's sake. My mom was actually in human resources at Procter & Gamble for 35 years. So I always considered her kind of my, unofficial career coach in these matters. And she encouraged me to take the Myers-Briggs personality test, which is a big thing at P&G and has been a big thing in corporations that I've worked at since. And my Myers-Briggs came back. I'm an ENFP. If anyone else has taken the test and you find yourself similar or different maybe to me. And public relations was one of the careers that came back that was well suited for an ENFP personality type. I loved writing. I loved reading. I didn't really know what career opportunities were out there for me at that time that involved reading and writing. Besides maybe being an English teacher, that's all I had really been exposed to. And she said, I think you might really like the PR thing. And the rest is kind of history. I studied strategic communications in school, and all of my internships were comms based. Like Ashley mentioned, PR is just one facet of communications. So I had roles all across the boards and, like I said, internal communications as well as PR, dabbled a little bit in social media as well. And then when I graduated, I was able to land my first full-time comms job. But yeah, I've been on the dark side since I was 16.
That's interesting. I mean, I am also PR from day one. I majored in strategic communication as well. And it felt like it was the right thing for me. I probably should take my Myers-Briggs. We probably have a really similar one. I guess.
I swear by it. It's like the corporate zodiac. If you're into like star signs or anything like that, this Myers-Briggs is my favorite. I never really got into Enneagram and all those other types of tests.
Yeah, I'm going to add that into my notes that I should take mine and just see what comes up. I guess, Sarah, diving into your career path, you recently made the jump from agency to starting your own consulting agency. What made you decide to make that jump?
Yeah. So to be totally transparent with you all, it was a little bit of an accident. So I actually started my career in aviation. I was at Southwest Airlines for 2 years and in Dallas, and I really loved it, but I was internal comms only, and I wanted to make that flip to being more externally facing, but there just weren't opportunities at Southwest at the time. And so I made the decision to expand my job search beyond Southwest, ended up landing a role at JetBlue Airways with their venture capital arm based in San Francisco. And so I led comms at JetBlue Ventures for 3 years, then moved on to the National Venture Capital Association, then moved on to Edelman Smithfield, which is a subsidiary of Edelman, the global PR firm. And my time at Edelman was really interesting. I was there for about 1.5 years, but in December, they had company-wide layoffs. And so I found my job suddenly impacted. And here I was, with no next step. And that had never happened to me before. I had never quit a job without lining another one up. I didn't really know what was next for me. It was like 2 weeks before Christmas, such a bummer. And what I ended up doing was posting on LinkedIn, letting my connections know that I was open and looking for new opportunities. But 2 startups from the time that I worked at JetBlue Ventures immediately reached out when they saw this post and they said, "Hey, you were really great at JetBlue. We would love for you to freelance for us while you look for your next thing." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And that wasn't something I had really considered before. Now, remember, I said my mom worked in HR at Procter & Gamble. So the first thing she made me do, the first thing she said I should do was spin up an LLC to try and kind of protect myself legally if I was going to go the consulting route. And what ended up happening was that I kept getting traction on the freelance and the fractional comm side. That's what the really popular term these days is within the venture and startup community, at least. And I kept getting traction there. And on the corporate or more kind of in-house 9-to-5 side, I was getting to these end stage interviews and not getting the offer. And so in April, about 4 months after I got laid off, I decided to go all in on my own business. And I spun up the website, I spun up a brand, and I let people know that I was accepting new clients. And it's really taken off from there. My network has been super responsive. So it's amazing, but it really just kind of came out of necessity from getting laid off that I needed money and I needed something to do.
Yeah. Yeah. You're a hustler, clearly. So I guess, Ashley, diving into the basics, some students who are early in their careers may not know the difference between, say, working at a traditional PR agency or in-house versus freelance as a communications consultant. Could you dive into kind of each role and how they differ, how they're similar?
Sure. Yeah, Sarah, I love your story, by the way. Your story really resonates with me. I just love hearing how people carved their own path and created their own opportunities. So I just love that. Congratulations to you, by the way. Okay, so think about those 3 buckets. That's how I think about it, right? The big 3, there's in-house, there's agency. Actually, I might even say 4 buckets. So there's in-house, There's big agency like Edelman, Weber Shandwick, the big behemoth global firms. Then there's small agency, boutique agency, even up to like a mid-size agency. I would put it in a different category, and we can briefly talk about why, versus the Edelmans and the Weber Shandwicks of the world. And then consulting or freelance, which, by the way, you're going to hear those different terms like fractional, consultant, freelancer, contractor. All those different kind of terms are sort of used interchangeably, dependent on the individual and the circumstance. So don't get confused by that. They all kind of mean the same thing, just different use cases. Okay, so you can work independently. You can work for a boutique or a smaller agency. You can work for a big agency, or you can work in-house. And of course, in-house has its own variability. In-house could be working for a multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation on a communications or PR team that may have 200 people on it. Or it could be working for a small nonprofit where there's one, director of communications, marketing, and PR, and it's you. Right? So the scale is huge, and it's hard in a short period of time to sort of generalize, but we're going to try. We're going to try to explain the differences between these as well as we can. My just broad sweeping generalizations about these categories in terms of your experience and what it might be in these roles would be, and Sarah, feel free to at any point refute me and say, no, I think you're wrong.
So far I'm aligned, so you're doing great.
Aligned, yes, perfect. Okay, we're using our business speech here. I love it. Okay, so in-house roles are generally going to be a little bit higher paid, or even a lot higher paid than your agency roles. They also tend to be more secure, more job security than your agency roles. Many people who land good in-house jobs stay in them for years and years and years, and they move through. If it's a large organization, they'll move through the organization. You heard about Sarah's mom as an example, different industry, but there's a lot of stories like that. If you get in with, a JP Morgan Chase or a great brand with a great culture, many people will stay for decades, and they'll just move through different sides of this large, corporate marketing and comms structure. They might be over here doing internal, then they're over here doing PR, then they're over here, doing social media. So they tend to be a little bit cushier, those in-house jobs, in terms of pay, in terms of security, in terms of benefits. The hours also tend to be a little bit better, generally.
Understatement of the year.
I mean, not always. Again, not always, but these are generalizations. So I would say in terms of caliber of the best opportunities and the ones that most professionals want, those juicy in-house roles are going to be top tier. I mean, that's the big get when you can get that role, because you're going to get the pay, you're going to get the benefits, you're going to get the security, you're going to get the good hours, and potentially have this long career at that company. That's generally the in-house path. Agency path, very, very different on the big agency side versus the small agency side. I'm going to let Sarah in a minute speak to the big agency side, because I myself have never spent time at an Edelman or a Weber Shandwick or a big agency. That was kind of intentional. I'm going to be candid with you, because I had friends and colleagues who spent time at big agencies, and culturally and just in terms of hours, they didn't really enjoy their experiences there. I hate to paint with a broad brush. What I heard about those big agencies is that, hey, you're going to cut your teeth, you're going to get a lot of great experience. It's going to look great on your resume. That's very, very appealing on the resume for later getting an in-house job or a different job. But it's really, really tough. It can be really, really tough. And you can feel kind of like a number and a little bit expendable in that big agency setting. Some people feel that way. A smaller agency, which was my experience, I worked for a couple of small to mid-size agencies. It was really, I would say, an opportunity for me to test out my skills, specifically with business development And that's going to be my segue to the consulting life, the freelance life. So my last full-time role before I became a consultant was at a boutique agency in Chicago. And that's where I really learned how to pitch and win business. Because in a smaller agency setting, it's more hands-on. It tends to be more like all hands on deck for responding to pitch proposals or going out and getting clients and writing proposals and winning business. So that was a really great practice ground for me to then learn how to go out and get my own clients as a consultant. Because once you're an independent, to speak about that last category, you have to wear all the hats, right? Like I've worked for myself for the last 10 years now. And something a lot of people are really challenged by, whether you're freelancing, you're consulting, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people struggle not with the work itself that you have to do, the PR work, the comms work, whatever it is you're doing, but the side of selling yourself and selling your services and going out there and winning business. Some people have experiences like Sarah described, which is absolutely wonderful, where referrals and leads and opportunities are just coming your way and people are just organically attracted to you and drawn to you. But many, many, many freelancers and consultants out there have to do the hustle and the legwork every day, every week to bring the business in, to get that pipeline filled up and keep it filled up. So that's something to consider, to think about, do I have that inside of me, that drive to go get that business? And could you potentially enjoy it? I found through my small agency experience, I found I actually enjoyed, not just that I can do it, but I enjoy the business development process. So that's kind of a learning that you get in that small agency environment. I'm going to be quiet there. I'm going to stop. Hopefully Sarah can speak to the big agency life a little bit more, but yeah, that's perspective on the buckets, the different roles.
I mean, +1 to everything you just said. And my experience at a big agency sounds pretty similar to that of your friends. It was a grind. I often recommend to folks who are making the decision between in-house and agency that agency, you're going to learn a lot very quickly, but it's going to take a ton of your time. I mean, I can't even begin to describe the number of all-nighters I had to pull for client work or plans that I had to cancel because something urgent came up on a client's behalf. And the bigger agency culture is that the client says jump and you say how high, because they are paying so much money for that retainer and for that specialized global expertise. That really was kind of the culture and expectation. So I often recommend to people, agency is a really great path if you want to learn very quickly, almost like trial by fire, but it's also going to kind of take a toll on your free time. And what I found as, when I first started at Edelman, a mid-career professional, that was a crazy amount of hours as someone that had come from corporate and been used to a bit better work-life balance. Of course, my experience is not the same as everybody's experience. I also candidly, might have had trouble managing expectations at that agency because I hadn't experienced it before. But that is kind of my generalization that I'll give as well about the big agency lifestyle. And then as far as winning new business, Edelman was great. I would not be able to run the business that I run today without that experience here, despite how difficult it was on my social life and just on, to do the job. I met so many smart people there that I'm still connected with to this day, even now that I've left this company. And to Ashley's point, it taught me how to source new business leads, write proposals that would make that potential lead convert into a client, and exactly how to navigate those conversations. Edelman was also interesting in that, at least at the mid-level, everybody was expected to have a pulse on the operational piece of the firm. So they, at least within my subsidiary, which was Edelman Smithfield, that focused on the financial markets, we were all expected to bill our clients, track the time, and know how to structure a retainer, essentially. And all of that experience, again, allowed me to be able to do the job that I do today. I really don't think that I would have been successful without it. Not that there aren't other ways to learn those skills, but for me personally, I found that kind of on-the-job learning has helped me the most throughout my years working in comms. So I am very appreciative of the time there, but I am also cognizant that it was a grind and it was a lot. And so that's not the kind of life that you're looking to lead, or not what you envision for yourself, just a consideration as you make that choice.
Yeah. It also sounds like having those strong connections from your agency life and your past lives in comms are really important to how successful you've been as a freelancer. Sarah, what advice do you have for people to kind of get started in building their networks?
Yeah, I used to be so afraid of the term networking because I thought it meant going to happy hours and getting people's LinkedIn profiles. I really didn't understand it. And so I will try to break it down in the most tangible way, what has worked for me. The first is posting on LinkedIn regularly. Of course, I say that I'm a comms person and I ghostwrite for like 8 other clients, but LinkedIn has been my most powerful tool for finding those business leads in my more extended network. That old colleague of a friend reaches out because they saw my post about running a business, or they saw my post analyzing the state of PR and media, whatever it is. It doesn't always have to be super serious. LinkedIn is becoming more of a social platform than ever, which I have separate thoughts on that we can save for another webinar. But posting on LinkedIn regularly has kept my name top of mind. And I have found that people reach out and they DM. They're like, it's great to see you. We should catch up. And it's really kind of been as simple as that. The other piece with networking that I think really helps, because I used to go to the cocktail parties and the dinners and I would forget people's names, or, years later, I see them pop up on my LinkedIn. I'm like, wait, who is that again? One really tangible tip that I got from a former colleague of mine is that when you meet these people at whatever dinner or cocktail hour, you add them on LinkedIn as you're chatting with them, and then you send them a DM and you say, it was so great meeting you at blank. Because I've had folks reach out later who were amazing contacts. This happened to me maybe 7 or 8 months ago. I had someone reach out and say, we would love to work with you. And I was like, gosh, I cannot remember how I know this person at all. And it came together once I got on the call pretty quickly, like that facial recognition kicked in. But man, would it have been nice to know how I knew her before I went into it, so I wasn't feeling totally, high and dry. So adding that person on LinkedIn face to face and then DMing them immediately has been really kind of an unlock to keep up with maybe those more secondary or tertiary contacts that you didn't work with and you didn't have everyday touch points with, because you never know who might be helpful kind of down the line. So those are my 2 big ones, both LinkedIn based, but it's worked really well for me in the past.
Yeah, same question for you, Ashley. Some background. I found both of you guys on LinkedIn. Sarah, I think I might have actually found you on TikTok back when you were at Edelman. So I feel like you guys are both doing a great job as far as social media goes and building your networks.
Oh, thanks, Claudia. That's so sweet. Sarah, you and I are going to be besties because I agree with everything you just said. Oh my gosh.
Yay.
Spot on. The only thing I'm going to add, I'm going to compliment just seconding everything Sarah said, but I'm going to say for our introverts out there, or our folks that do not like going to in-person events, because hello, no thanks, in my PJs by 8 p.m. Thank you very much. I'm going to say, don't be afraid to use platforms like LinkedIn or other social media spaces or places like the Hab, other types of groups and communities where you're going to get a more diverse group of people, whether that's joining IABC, PRSA, things like that, engaging in virtual groups and spaces. Don't be afraid to apply the same approach that you would take in an in-person setting in a virtual space. And what I mean by that is many of us, we get in our heads about the idea of networking or like connecting with new people or messaging strangers online, right? Creepy. Oh, I can't do that. No, thank you. But when we're at an event or we're in person with a group, we don't think twice necessarily about walking up to that group next to us of people we don't know and putting out our hand and saying, hey, I'm Ashley, you know, oh, you're in PR too. And, you know, how long have you done this? Who do you work for? So just, you know, try to shift your mindset. If you're worried about networking virtually and digitally, shift your mindset to how would I approach this person if we were just near each other at some sort of PR happy hour event or some sort of networking event? Because people are in these spaces to network. They just don't know how to do it necessarily. So you can be the person that walks up and sticks out your hand, so to speak, and just introduces yourself. All networking means, all that means, it's just a fancy buzzword way of saying meeting new people, meeting new people. And I think, I mean, that was going to be my number one thing for this group. I think it is the most important thing you could possibly do on a weekly basis is challenging yourself to proactively, intentionally meet new people in this space. Every single week, set yourself a little goal. If you're just starting out, set a goal of one new person a week. You know, for the next month, we're about to start a new month in November. I'm going to go out and I'm going to meet one new person in the comms marketing and PR world every week. That's going to be my goal, to have one interaction with a stranger this week. And then if you're more advanced, maybe it's 5 people a week. If you're more advanced, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20. On LinkedIn, I can tell you, you can send like 100 new connection requests every week. If you really want to turn this into a hustle and be out there putting your hand out and meeting as many people as possible, you could potentially do that with like 100 people plus every week if you really want to push yourself. And the reason I recommend it so much is because whatever path you choose, whether you choose the small agency path, the big agency path, the in-house path, the freelancing for now path, or the long-term consultant path, starting your own agency path, any path, networking is going to be your shortcut to success. Because every conversation, and I actually think it could benefit you if you're kind of open to possibilities, you're open to, hey, I could do this, I could do that, I'm curious, I'm interested in different things, I can pivot, I can be adaptable. You can play that up in your conversations with people as you network. You can say, hey, I'm exploring, I'm curious, I want to learn more about what you're up to, what you're doing, what has your journey been like? Because I am considering freelancing, I am considering agency roles, I am considering in-house roles. That flexibility and openness is going to play so well in those networking conversations. And then you can be listening, right? You can be listening for those indicators from people that, oh, you know, I know somebody at such and such agency. Let me introduce you. I know somebody who's running their own consultancy. Let me introduce you. I know someone who leads PR at, you know, Citibank. Let me introduce you. So just that extending a friendly hand, starting genuine conversations with people, even virtually, and being open to all possibilities, it's only going to benefit you.
I love that. And I feel like I even sometimes get into that habit of, I feel like virtual is so different than in person, but it's really not. I'm like, why am I not just like cold emailing people and asking them to meet and do a virtual coffee chat, those sort of things? It's like, that is so easy.
It really helps to just shift your mindset. Don't think of it, you're not pitching, you're not doing cold outreach, you're not networking, you're just meeting new people, and you know how to meet new people.
Yeah. And it's funny, Ashley, it seems like your comment hit home with someone. They actually know someone who works in comms at Citi, which is kind of funny.
It's funny. I'm using banking institutions, probably because we're talking about the finance world and whatnot.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I do want to give us a little bit of time for questions if people want to start putting their questions in the chat if they have any. And in the meantime, Ashley, I would love to give you like a minute or two to just talk about comms consultants and what you do.
That's so sweet. I'm gonna drop some goodies in the chat. Can I drop an attachment in here? Let's see.
You might be able to share a link.
Dang. I don't think this is gonna work. You know what? I'll send my stuff to you. I'll send my goodies to you, Claudia, and then you can send it
Yeah.
to the group after. Also feel free, anybody who's in here and is curious for more goodies, I like to call them goodies, freebies, resources, links to cool stuff. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And like we just said, extend your hand to me and say hello, and I will I'll hook you up with a bunch of resources. You can DM me. So that's probably an easier way to do it. I'll send them to you, Claudia, and I will.
Yeah, and we'll just go ahead. We'll post those in the PR Habitat group. For people who aren't in the group, I'm going to promote us. It's the Hab on LinkedIn groups, and we try and promote all our things in there and have people introduce themselves, and it's a great way to network with people. I've even met multiple people for coffee, and I did not know that many other PR people lived in Denver. I feel like it's few and far between, but that's besides the point. I will share all those things in there.
And you can definitely feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I probably don't have as many pre-baked resources as Ashley does, but I would love to help kind of in any way that I can.
Awesome.
Question.
I have a question from Kayla. When it comes to the business side of running your own business, how do you keep your finances and materials organized while still running your clients' communications plans?
Do you mind if I take this one first? This is my least favorite part of the job, just being incredibly transparent. It should be my favorite part because it's like how I get paid and all of that back end stuff. But, I got into business because I really enjoy comms and PR. I didn't get into business for myself because I loved running a business or something. So I experimented with a couple different things. I think the most important to maybe tackle first is, I built my whole business on Google Workspace. I felt like that was the lowest barrier to entry. It was the platform I was already comfortable with. So it was really easy for me to spin up my website and my email, which is at Mattina Media Group, for super low cost. So as a blanket statement, I run my business on the Google Workspace. That said, all of my contracts, invoicing, kind of those files, et cetera, are live in the Google Drive. And I experimented with a couple different options for invoicing. There are all kinds of platforms out there that you can invoice on, and they'll charge you a small fee. But when I was first starting out a couple months ago, I did not have money to spare. And I actually spoke with another comms consultant who's been doing this for 15 years. And he's like, what are you doing? Just send them a Word doc converted to a PDF with your bank details and have them directly wire you. Don't let anybody take a cut of your money. And so I started doing that, and then that became a little bit of a beast because then I'm managing the Google Docs. And anyways, I ended up hiring my sister, who's 1 year out of college, to manage my invoicing. She has access to how I track my time, which is a website called clockify.com. I found that through yet another consultant. See the power of networking, everyone's sharing tools. I use Clockify in order to track my hours because some of my clients are hourly, some of them are retainer. And what my sister does now is she logs into my Clockify, she pulls the report monthly, she compiles the notes of everything that I worked on and when, translates them to my invoice. Now she manages the invoice sending process with my clients. So that's kind of a really high level overview of how I do it. Again, I'm only 10 months into this business, so this is the really rough and dirty way. I would love to, as I become a more sophisticated organization, use a platform like Ramp or something that makes direct wires just a little bit more easy, a little bit more customer facing in a way that they don't have to log into their banks and get this PDF from me, but I'm not there yet. So that's how I'm doing it for now.
I love that, Sarah. I want to, if we can look at the chat, because the last two questions from Caitlin and Eva, I feel like I can answer that with reinforcing what we just talked about, which is networking. Not to belabor this point, guys, but if you don't have any experience in the industry yet, and either you're pivoting from a different, industry, or you're just starting out, you are most likely going to get your first foot in the door opportunity through someone you know. Someone you know. In fact, most senior professionals right now that are looking, I can tell you this with certainty, most senior professionals, it's a tough market, who are looking for their next full-time role or their next consulting opportunity are getting it the exact same way, through someone they know. So it's either going to be someone already in your existing network that you need to be talking to and having conversations with, or it's going to be one of those new people that you put your hand out and you say, hey, you know, let's get to know each other. One tip I'll give, just back to the networking thing, when you do actually book a networking call, my favorite thing to ask people on those calls, like a first time intro call, right? A lot of people will be open to doing a 20-minute, you know, virtual coffee or an intro chat with you, especially if you play up that you're just trying to break into this industry. You're just trying to learn about the industry. You're trying to break in. You're trying to get your foot in the door. A lot of people are going to be open to chatting with you. So what do you do when you're on that call, that first time intro call? The 2 tips I'm going to give you. One is make that whole call, that first time call, all about them. Come prepared with questions. Ask ChatGPT to help you if you need to. Make it, you know, you being super curious to learn their life story and their professional story. Because my God, does everyone like to talk about themselves? That's a universal human truth, right? So if you make it all about them, they're going to love that. They're going to feel like by the end of the call that they kind of owe you a favor because you've been so wonderfully listening to their life story this whole time. And then here's the favor you ask at the end. This was how I built my network from the start. What you ask at the end is not, hey, do you have a job for me? Hey, will you hire me, right? The question you ask is, hey, is there one person in your network that you could introduce me to? Is there one other person? Now that we've had a chance to meet, hey, you can say, I'm on a mission to expand my network. I know how important it is to build a strong network. Can you think of one other person that you know in our field, in this industry, that you would be open to introducing me to? And let me send you an intro blurb that you can copy and paste to make it as easy as possible over email. By doing those calls, a few every week, and every one of them introducing you to somebody else, connecting you to somebody else, before long, you're going to find yourself on these virtual coffees and on these intro chats all the time. And one of those chats, or maybe multiple chats, are going to lead you directly to your next opportunity. Whether that's a freelance opportunity, it's a full-time role, it's agency, it's in-house, it's going to come through one of those conversations.
I would love to briefly add on to that, just as another potential option. So I have switched industries from aviation to, you know, kind of the world of venture capital. I also previously, like when I was at the National Venture Capital Association, I was working on their nonprofit arm. One way that I have really been able to find success in getting my foot in the door in those industries is through volunteering, actually. So I am a big proponent of volunteering. You know, I think that everybody should do it, but you know, if nothing else, that is a way to get your foot in the door with something that maybe you're not getting a lot of day-to-day experience with your day job. So for example, when I was full-time at Southwest Airlines, I volunteered with the nonprofit Canine Companions for Independence in order to get nonprofit experience because I thought I might want to work in a nonprofit one day. And then years later, lo and behold, I got a nonprofit job, which was really exciting. Something else, again, this is just me personally. I really like to learn about something on the go. And so when I wanted, a job in a new industry, what I would do is that I was open to taking something that felt maybe a little like beneath me or a pay cut. You know, not everybody has that luxury in order to get directionally a half step closer to the thing I really wanted. So my personal example is I glaze over this in my background because nobody ever wants to talk about the skeletons in their closet. I quit Southwest to work for a small 5-person agency in Dallas because I knew I needed that experience in media relations and external comms, but I was already 2 years out of school and didn't have that. So the big firms like the Weber, Shandwick, or Edelmans of the world, I was getting looks, but no offers. And so I worked at this PR firm for like 3 months. Again, I'm not recommending that you do this. The timing just worked out this way. I had not planned to be there for such a short time. I worked there for 3 months. There is no way I would have gotten the job at JetBlue without that stint at that at that agency for 3 months. And again, it's not on my LinkedIn. It's not on my resume. You're not going to see that anywhere. That is an exclusive for the PR Habitat. But I knew I needed that external comms experience, and I took a 10K pay cut because I knew that I could afford it at the time in order to get that experience. And it didn't take long before JetBlue, saw my value and saw that I was able to do the job. Sometimes these companies just want to know that you can do the job.
I have to, in our last couple minutes, I just have to second again what Sarah said. So smart. When you can't compete on experience, when you don't have the experience, you're starting at the ground level with like a specialty or an industry that you want to get into. Your best competition, honestly, is on price. So whether you're doing things pro bono, you're doing things at like a trial or probationary rate that's super, super, super low, and you're catching people with that cost and price efficiency. Like my first 3 internships were all unpaid, which was probably illegal. And then my first job in New York, I was making $28K a year without benefits. I mean, that was pretty bad. That sometimes when you're starting out, I hate to say it, it's probably going to make me sound like a boomer, but you're going to have to work either for very cheap or even free for small amounts of time or little pockets here and there in order to start to build your book and your experience and get a little bit of, a few chops, get a few things that you could talk about. Hey, I did this little campaign, or I helped this nonprofit with this little thing, so you have something to talk about. Otherwise, it's going to be tough. You're going to have to start low in order to build up, but you can build up fast from there. That's the exciting part.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm going to make sure we're not going too far over time, but I do want to close with, this is also my favorite question to ask. What's been your favorite client or project that both of you guys have worked with in your comms and PR careers?
Good one.
Oh my gosh. I would actually like to give a shout out to a current client. I do not have favorite clients, just like parents do not have favorite children, but they were one of the first ones to make a bet on me to pay me a retainer, and I would love to kind of return the plug in favor. It's a startup called Homegrown. They provide financing for brick and mortar entrepreneurs. And so I really love the founder and CEO, Michael Davis. He is one of the smartest people I've ever met. He previously was in Deloitte Consulting for almost a decade. And so really sharp guy, but he's also got a personal connection to the mission, which is that as a child, he watched his parents open a brick and mortar storefront and really struggle to finance that. And they're still kind of feeling that pinch point today, all these years later. And so he founded Homegrown for people like his parents who needed access to capital without putting their personal property, like their home or their assets, on the line. And so not only do I really love what Michael is doing, and he's got that personal conviction in the mission, but Homegrown is, I totally lost my train of thought. Homegrown, one thing that is really interesting about them is that they are really fueling this next generation of neighborhoods and of communities, especially in this age of AI, where a lot of people are skeptical about it. A lot of people are afraid about what AI is doing to the job market. But one thing that is not going away is that need for in-person connection. Mm-hmm. And we can't have that in-person connection without the coffee shops, without the nail salon, without the hair salon, without the brewery. And so it's really cool because it truly feels like Homegrown is funding kind of that next frontier of like the neighborhood and in-person community. Can you tell I'm their PR person, by the way?
No, you're doing a great job. I'm so
So I do external comms for them. I ghostwrite for Michael Davis. If you check out his LinkedIn, I do the company LinkedIn account. I do external media for them. And kind of am stepping into the role of a fractional chief marketing officer, which is really cool. But yeah, great team. Now to that point, again, within the circle, my retainer with them is very low. And that is because of my lack of experience freelancing. I didn't want to price it too high because I wanted people to make an early bet on me. And the people that did got a massive discount, to Ashley's point.
I love that. You're passionate about it. I can feel it. I can feel the passion.
Yeah. I mean, the team make it really, really easy to be, something to be passionate about. I'm going to see them in person for the first time in 2 weeks. So I'm really excited.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll be really quick. Claudia. I'll try to be quick.
Yeah.
So I started in PR, and this might be sort of illuminating because we started by talking about all the different realms within comms and marketing you can work in, right? It's not just PR. So many of us start in PR, but then we find sort of other things that we're interested in within this landscape over time. So that was true for me. I eventually landed, unlike Sarah, I landed in internal communications after years of doing PR and external and public affairs and things that were externally focused. I sort of discovered the internal side where you're working to reach employees and you're essentially using your PR skills and your communication skills, but to engage employees within an organization, which is so, so important, right? Retaining employees, if you can figure that out, through the help of good communication, can save businesses millions and millions of dollars a year. So it's a really, really valuable thing to do. And I just discovered, it took me years of being in the comms landscape to discover the world of internal communications. I wouldn't have even known when I graduated school that that was like a job path that I could take. And I, about 10 years ago or so, maybe 12, I led a national internal communications assessment for Exelon, which is a big energy provider. And I got to travel to 7 different states.
Wow.
Meet with, I think we did 22 focus groups with employees and meet with a ton of employees and managers for Exelon's large organization. And it was so cool because then we got to design an internal communications program based on everything that we learned, right? This amazing internal assessment that was really hands-on, where we got to talk to people who were actually doing the work, to keep the lights on across all of these different states. And it was such a neat experience to be able to talk with people, learn what resonated with them, and then build a communications program that worked for their real lives and their real jobs. And again, that's an experience I just wouldn't have even been able to conceive of when I started in PR. I started in beauty PR in New York and, took a long road into something completely different. So that might be a good way to end it, is to say your journey is going to take you to surprising places and you're going to learn more about yourself with every single role, every single challenge, good, bad, positive, negative, ugly, whatever it is, you're going to learn from it. And it's going to push you more and more to the direction that you were meant to go, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I think that was a great way to end it. I wanted to thank you both so much again for joining us on this PR Habitat, LinkedIn Live, Google Meet, whatever we want to call it. And I hope for all of you HAB members that you got something out of this. Feel free to connect with me, Ashley, Sarah, and their bio or their profiles are linked in the event page, so you can find them easily that way, or just look them up or message me, whatever you would like to do to find them. And yeah, I hope everyone got something good out of this, and I will be hosting more events soon, one more before the year's over. So keep your eyes open for that one. Thanks everyone again.
Thanks guys. This was great. Have a great night.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye everyone.